Good afternoon, good evening, and good night, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. We would just like to welcome you back once again to the Low High Podcast. I'm one half of your host, Sele.
And I'm the other half, Marcello.
He's high, I'm low, and I just want you guys to remember, no matter how you feel, you've always got a place to go. Thank you for joining us.
So today on the Low High Podcast, we actually have new music, not from our usual Cambry, even though his lo-fi is amazing. This is actually all from Saz. So we'll put her Instagram in the description. But it's like SAAAZUK. And she's pretty cool. She's from London in university, and she makes some pretty nice lo-fi. So
please enjoy her smooth tones and patronize her pages and music.
Yes, for sure.
All right, so diving into today's topic. Do y'all feel smart? Do y'all feel stupid? Do you feel like every time you open a book to study, nothing ever penetrates your thick skull? Do you feel educated?
Or not educated?
Today on the Low High Podcast, we're going to be tackling the topic of what exactly defines an education, what makes one feel educated, and what qualifies as an education. So Marcello, what are your thoughts?
I think it's pretty tough, right? Because there's so many things. You can learn so much about so many things. You can learn about really good and really bad things, right? And you can learn about everything in between. There's just learning everywhere.
No, for sure.
But I think education, when I think education, I think school, right? And
yeah.
I hate school here in America. And I hate school in general, and I hate school here, bro. I wish I was a child of the Ottoman Empire. You have no idea. I know, whenever I say that, everyone's like, why the Ottoman Empire? But they were really big. They had like a saying, and it was plastered on pretty much all of their walls in their main events. It was like, here, no fish will be forced to fly and no bird will be taught to swim.
Oh, that's a good saying.
Yeah, it's a great saying, because they were pretty much just like, okay, they did this general education, and then, you know, some people, they pretty much just analyze people's, not even analyze, like, all right, these are your strengths, these are your interests. Like, we're not going to make you, if you're really good at a great craftsman, we're not going to make you try and do like physics and conceptual. Well, not like the Ottoman Empire was probably big in physics, stuff like that. But
no, I understand. Like, my view on education is that it's important, but it doesn't have to be about school. Okay, so my whole thing is that I believe, like, I've always wanted to make sure I get a degree and complete my education.
Mm-hmm.
But by and large, I don't really care about school, a lot of school, because when stuff that I'm really not interested in, stuff that doesn't excite me or make me want to think a lot, I really don't get interested in. I don't want to put effort into it, because here's the thing. The schooling system is established in a very specific way to allow people who are good at a specific kind of learning to prosper and excel. Mm-hmm. Like, I have always been like, when something doesn't interest me, I never really want to put maximum effort into it. And a lot of the things that they teach in school are just really not that interesting. So I can never find the full motivation to work hard. But at the same time, though, I believe in the world we live in, getting a standard education is important, even in the way that it'll open some doors for you. See, people say education will open a lot of doors for you, but like, I know a lot of people who've graduated that don't have jobs, so I don't know if it opens that many doors. But imagine how many doors are closed if you don't have it.
That is a good point. You said something kind of interesting before, because I know you're a totally curious person. Like, you actually know a lot of stuff, and you're always telling me about these new things that you found outside of the classroom.
Oh, for sure.
And like, obviously you're more interested in it, so you're gonna go putting all this effort. But like, one big suspicion I had when it comes to like getting educated from teachers, especially like college, it kind of makes more sense. You have professors or people who did stuff in their field for the most part, although there is that saying that creeps me all the time, is like, those who can't do teach.
Who can't do teach.
Yeah. And that, I hate it. But bro, I remember, because I was so terrible at math I still am. But like, whoa, math in school for me was probably the worst thing ever. Math and English. And what was it called? Oh yeah, like I'd always ask my math teacher, I'm like, why are these formulas? What do they actually do in real life? Like, what are they applicable to? And they can never answer those questions. And it always made me very sus about the material I was learning. I was like, I don't even think this is standard or real. Like,
Wow.
what is all this like algebra? What the fuck do I use that for?
But, no, I understand completely. I spent so many years learning math and I don't remember any of it. I remember 2 years ago, I was visiting my family in Houston. Some family, my my aunt in Houston, and her little son. He was doing math, and she was like, "Yo, Stella, you should go help him with his homework." And what was it? It was long division. And she's like, "Okay, so this is what we're doing." And I look at the assignment for like 10 seconds. And then before I pull up my phone and just open a YouTube video on long division, like, all right, so we're gonna watch this.
Doesn't that always hurt when you're like, because that happens to me too. My younger sister's still in like high school. She asked me for questions. I'm fucking in college, and I'm like, this is foreign to me.
I'm like, man, I do not know. And like, it's messed. And like, I really felt bad, not knowing long division until I talked to some other people our age, and they're like, "Oh man, I don't know anything about long division."
Yeah, dude. Nah. You talk to some people our age, it's kind of scary.
It is, but that's a problem with school. A lot of the things that they teach have an expiry date, and you really don't even use them that much.
Well, I guess. Well, like, okay. So I know that again, like math is one of those things that seems super useful. It's totally useless in modern life, right? But actually, a lot of my friends from high school went to like the STEM fields, and
really?
Yeah, and they really actually use that shit. So,
like engineers, architects. There are a good amount of careers that if you need a focus in mathematics is useful.
Yeah.
But by and large, if you decide to live a largely average life or go into the arts or something, it's really not that useful for you.
Not that useful.
Okay, so when I was in boarding school in Nigeria, once you finished your first 3 years, you'd be divided into 2 classes. There was the arts class and the science class. I don't even know why that distinction existed, because in my school, it was literally just based on your grades.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that I got put in the science class my 4th year, and my mom was like, "Yo, why?"
Mm-hmm.
Because I was in the science class, but they had us taking physics, chem, all this stuff, like, bro. And the thing is that, bro, the way they teach all these things in Nigerian schools make it seem even more impossible than it already is. No, I remember
like,
taking,
how so?
Bro, like these, like, bro, you can't do like, okay, no calculators allowed. You're not allowed. You have to memorize this. You got to memorize that. Like, you can't look at anything, and they tell it to you once. You're not allowed to ask any questions in class, and they expect you to write these long ass exams. Like, bro, it literally doesn't make sense. They just expect you to swallow all of this and just throw it back up on the paper.
I would do terrible.
And see, like, it's non-sustainable. Like, I feel like, okay, the education system I would be most down with. I don't know. You said you want to be a student in the Ottoman Empire. I don't know. I feel like probably like way, way back in the day, like, how all these ancient Greek philosophers would take on students. I feel like that's the kind of education I want.
You do,
because literally he's just this crazy old man who'd be out there spouting theories, and you got to be like, yes, I do think, therefore I am. I don't even know if it's a Greek guy who said that. Sorry, you were saying?
I was that's like seems like such an interesting version of education to me.
Right, and many of these people ended up being private tutors to all these great royal children, like Alexander the Great and whatever. Like, I know who was his teacher? Was it Socrates, Plato? I don't remember who.
I don't either.
But I feel, see, the thing about education is that having a standardized education leaves a lot of people behind, which is why I'm not completely down with it. Mm-hmm. I believe education is important, but I believe that there are certain concessions? Not concessions. There's certain like not everybody can meet the same conditions. Not everybody learns in the same way.
Oh, for sure.
And like that's what like you were saying about the Ottoman Empire. If you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it's gonna look dumb as hell.
Yeah, look dumb as hell. Well, I think that my biggest pet peeve, right, besides like the learning style, and it's like, and I'm only talking about American schools here, is
Yeah.
for the most part, right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like first off, the whole public versus private education I think is very unfair, and then you have SATs, which is its own completely unfair ball game, and the ACT. However, I think that it's you know, I would talk to my grandparents or like great uncles and stuff like that, and they were saying like, "Oh my god, dude, I would have loved to have been a student back in the day," right?
Really?
Because like they took classes. They took like a wood shop class. They took their basic math, English, science. They took like practical classes. Like there was like a mechanic class. Like dude, like if the idea of 18, you graduate high school, you're a legal adult. High school should have theoretically prepared you to live on your own, which means they should teach us how to like file taxes, 401ks, how to change a tire on your car, like cleaning your house, basic stuff like that, because not everybody goes to college.
But instead they're teaching us advanced physics, like we're gonna revolutionize nuclear power, like bro.
Yeah,
No.
and a lot of schools really just prime you to get ready to just go to college and do well in college, but like that's also kind of useless.
That's the thing. Like we live in a world where college isn't a sure thing anymore. Like it's not a guarantee that you're gonna get employed because the world is changing so rapidly. A lot of these things that we're learning in high school might become obsolete by the time we're adults, and that's really frightening to think about, isn't it?
It's terrifying
Because so many jobs disappear. Like how many? Because think about we already did an episode about extinct jobs. That's a shameless plug. You should go check that out. But I think that it highlights a very real problem with our education system. Our education system, in my opinion, isn't adaptive. And I think that the whole point of education is that it should prepare you to adapt.
I completely agree. That's kind of why you do all these classes in these broad spectrums, is the idea of like stretching and bending your mind to work in different areas and just being able to learn things, right? Yeah, I don't know where I was. I think that is like one of the reasons that we have all those different subjects.
I feel that it's really important to learn a lot of different subjects. You're right, but I feel that people should be able to gain more of a focus early, from like when they're young.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing: that the problem with that is that some people decide, okay, I'm gonna be an astronaut when I'm a kid, when they're young, and then they grow up and they're like, oh no, being an astronaut requires math. Nah.
Miss me with that.
That's the thing. Education, at least up until you get college, does not teach you the realistic standards for what you want to aspire to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like it's just a lukewarm level of math, physics, English, and they teach you all these things. And like it's good to like learn these things. Don't get me wrong. I believe learning things like learning a foreign language are important. Even though I took years of French and I don't know any French at all. Like, expanding your horizons, I think, is definitely important. But at the same time, it's kind of difficult to do that in a system that's so focused on grading.
Yes.
And that's the thing. Grades determine everything in high school, in middle school, and all those things. They determine when you get to college. And in a lot of fields, grades do still matter when it comes to getting employed. But in fields like game design, which I'm in, they literally tell you, okay, look, your games don't matter. You just need to have a good portfolio. You just got to be good at making games.
Yeah.
You just need a or in comp sci, they're like, oh, you just need a certification and stuff like that. And the things that a lot of people, the problem with the grading system, right, is that a lot of people, they grow up and they base their own self-value on their ability to get good grades. Like a lot of people who don't have to try that hard in school, they don't really need to study that much. They have always gotten good grades and they've always been told that they're gifted, stuff like that. But then they get older and they enter a more fast-paced environment in university, and they can't cope, and they're not getting all A's anymore, and it damages their self-image, it damages their self-value, because they've been taught their entire lives that grades are what really matters.
Dude, and that, I agree with you, and I think that's like the most dangerous part I get, or the part that pisses me off the most, is that we're literally assigning numerical values to people. And I remember so vividly, man, like going back to high school, I'm a bad student. I was way worse back in high school, like seriously flunking. And but I worked really hard at school, and I remember like I was working hard at school. I was in all the dumb classes, quote unquote dumb classes. And so like I had to work a lot harder to get the B and C average that some people didn't have to work at all for. And so the fact that it's like an unfair, you know?
Yeah, no, I understand completely what you're saying. My thing is, when I look back at high school, I know I definitely could have done better in a lot of my classes. But at the same time, I just did not really care. And that's my big problem. If I'm not interested, I do not care. My whole thing was in high school was like, okay, I'm not going to work super hard. I'm just going to do well enough to get into college. Then I'll figure things out from there.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into college, still figuring things out. I think you just need to understand, like, getting educated is important, but you need to understand that not everything you're gonna do in life, your education will prepare you for, I think.
I'm for that. I'm down with that.
Well, like, I don't know, I feel like school gives really good experiences. Like, I've met a bunch of really good friends because of school. I've met really inspiring teachers, inspiring people because of school.
Mm-hmm.
But like, not gonna lie, a lot of it has been really shitty.
Like how so though? Like what about that?
Like shitty or inspiring?
Let's do both. Let's do like one and one.
Okay, shittiest thing about school. My problem has always been that I've really aggravated a bunch of my teachers because they're like, man, Sally, I really like you as a person, but you're just the worst student. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't want to make you waste your time like this, but man, I really just don't give a shit. I remember this chemistry teacher I had. Man, this dude fucking hated me. And I think he didn't hate me, right, as a person. We had good conversations. Like, it's clear, like, I respected him, and he understood clearly that I didn't want to act out or be lazy or be stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But he's always telling me, he's like, bro, Sally, you gotta work hard. And I'm like, I know, I'm sorry. But I literally just couldn't, man, because, dude, I did not care about physics. But at the same time, though, when I was still struggling on becoming a writer, I had this English teacher, I think in 9th grade, very eccentric guy. I showed him some of my early writing work, and he's like, wow. He's like, and I remember during my parent-teacher conference, he tells my parents, true story, he tells my parents, like, if we lived in a completely non-advanced, completely nomadic traditional culture with no technology, Saleh's role would be as a natural born storyteller. And I'm like, wow, that's and I remember I'm like, what, I'm like 15. That's the highest compliment I've ever received.
That's a pretty nice compliment.
So I became a writer, and I've been chasing that high ever since.
Chasing that high. I mean, it's so nice though when teachers actually validate you, right? Like,
it is. Validation can be good. It does feel good.
I never really got validated. Not to like, but like it really never happened.
Well, don't worry, Marcello. I think you're valid. And if you're listening to this podcast, I think you're valid too.
Thank you. And yes, we validate. We're big on validating.
Oh yeah, for sure. Keep kind, remember.
Keep kind.
But man, God. Nigerian school, man, I have had the worst teachers. Fucking hell. I had a lot of teachers who literally just had beef with me for no reason. Zero. But they just wanted to go out of their way to make my life miserable. And to this day, I don't understand why. I started from primary school. So, like, there was this teacher I had in primary 4. Bro, this lady was one of the biggest ops I've ever encountered in my life. So she taught me, my brother, and my older sister. She taught literally all of us. She loved my sister. But me and my brother, man, she hated us.
Damn.
Hated us so much. Literally from the first day I entered her class, she was just giving me the stink eye. Because I don't know, I guess because I looked a bit too much like my brother or something. She was like,
Was your brother good or bad in school?
My brother he was like really smart. He always did the things he was supposed to do. He kind of like the thing that's about me and him both kind of have attitude, but his attitude was a bit more excusable because his grades were always really good.
Mm-hmm.
I was only ever good at the things I wanted to do, so that made teachers really aggravated at me.
Mm-hmm.
But like this woman, she just hated both of us indiscriminately. I'm not gonna say her name in case anybody listens to this.
Damn.
Who is associated with her in any way. But my God, this lady was just the worst. And she was just my teacher for that entire year. And it's fucked up, right? Because my mom still talks to her sometimes. And that makes me so angry. Because I'm like, Mom, do you not know this woman despises us? She's like, oh, no, Shelly, it's not that bad. Like, man, it's that bad.
Was it like when the teachers ratted on you, not ratted on you, but like, was it your fault or was it the teacher's fault? Like, where did your parents stand on that?
Oof. Okay, it depends. Because a lot of the time, I never really did anything bad enough that my parents would be like, man, it's anybody's fault. But my parents usually would take the teacher's side, which is kind of fucked up in my opinion, but that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, it's a fun story. I remember when my brother was in boarding school, one of the teachers told my mom that my brother was in a cult. And then when my mom goes up to my brother, she's like, are you in a cult? And he's like, what? Because like it's funny as hell. Because bro, his school, they used to work this nigga to the bone all the time.
Damn.
He's like, Mom, I don't have the time or the energy to engage in such things. Why would you even ask me this? And that's a real problem. That's another problem with the education system. So many parents are willing to believe the words of teachers like they're law. Mm-hmm. And they forget the teachers are also people with imperfections, people who also fucking lie a lot.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I hope I'm not getting any echo.
No, you're good. I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, and I just see a lot of these cases of, oh no, this kid told people what the teacher was doing to them and they didn't believe them. Like, having your parents not believe, because having your parents take the words of your teacher over you I think can be especially damaging.
Yeah.
Because it's basically especially when you're young, right? Because you've always had you have this utter and complete confidence in your parents all the time. But then you see your parents take the word of this person that they don't know, that this person that you see once a day in school, and they're believing that person over you. Like that can like mess you up for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
How about you were saying?
I was just gonna say, like, I feel like everyone's had their share of just terrible teachers. Like, one of my worst teachers was it was like 4th grade. I'm not gonna use any names or whatever. But dude, my teacher, she was just a wreck. I felt bad for her because she was going through a lot.
Oh, really?
And she was kind of older. I don't even know what she was going through, man, but she'd actually just start crying in the middle of like a lecture, and she'd like walk out a lot. And I've had some other teachers that were really just hard on me because, again, like I get it, right? I kind of deserved most. Like, I was a dick. I definitely did not pay attention. I did not give a shit about school, and I made that kind of clear. But I like started turning around, and I had some teachers, I can't even lie, who like really went to bat for me. had some mad nice relationships with. I actually still talk to like 2 teachers from high school today sometimes.
Oh, that's good. I follow a bunch of my teachers from high school on Facebook. There's only like 2 that I really talk to that often. My old self-defense teacher, and
You had
this guy who,
self-defense?
yes, dude, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That stuff was.
Oh,
It's like we had to take a PE class like every year. I took that class 3 times. It was the best.
that sounds awesome, actually.
I remember when I met him, I talked so much shit because he was a bunch shorter than me. But he literally lifted me over his head and just slammed me on the ground. And I'm like, okay, I clearly have a lot to learn.
Damn. What about
see-
teachers outside of the classroom?
Like, what do you mean? Like private tutors?
Yeah, I guess it could, or like, well, now I'm just thinking more like loosely, kind of like mentor type deal, or just like, I feel like even coaches or teachers.
See, I never really had a lot of mentors. I had a piano teacher who taught me. I've had like a couple of piano teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Like they taught me a great amount of appreciation for music, which is something I appreciate till this day.
Mm-hmm.
Because because like when somebody who really appreciates something, when they're teaching it to something else, you can feel their passion for it, and a lot of the time it ends up rubbing off on you, unless you're just completely disconnected from the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I never got that good at playing piano, I still appreciate it to this day. Like whenever I see a piano, I still do like touch it and I play. There's one little simple jingle that my teachers always made me practice with.
Nice.
And I feel like it's stuff like that that should be the core of education, to inspire you to want to continue even in the small ways.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because okay, like imagine you're really passionate about something, but then you get a teacher that makes you hate it. Isn't that the worst thing that could possibly happen?
Bro, no, it's actually tragic. I mean, that low-key happened with me at college.
Damn, really?
I came for film. Like, remember that video production class that we had? And it was painful. So painful.
Bro, at least you never. I had to take that class twice.
Yeah, thank God I didn't have to take it twice.
Bro, I didn't even that's fucked up thing is that I didn't even. Oh no, I did fail it. But like to be fair, that lady did not make that shit easy. Like
no.
Fuck.
No, she was kind of a bitch, but whatever. I'll say it. I don't care.
Damn, imagine she listens to this podcast. You know, we're not gonna say any names,
no
just
names.
in case. No names to protect the identity of the innocent or the bitches.
Or the bitches.
Nah, but in the end, though, I feel you gotta find the best education for yourself, and maybe that's through mentors. Maybe that's through a standard education. Did you have any mentors that you like really looked up to outside of school?
See, I made it a point to never look up to anybody, actually.
Really? Why?
Yes. It's one of those stupid things that my uncle would always say. He was just like, because I went to see a play, because you know Michael Cera, he's like an actor. We went to see a play with him in it, and I was mad hyped, and like I wanted to get his autograph. I didn't end up getting his autograph. And I just remember one of my uncles, he was always just like, dude, like you should never look up, like you should never idolize celebrities, blah blah blah. Like don't ask them for your autograph, give them yours instead. Like, that's his whole mentality. And for some reason, I really just took that and I really sat with it. Like I don't know why, right? Obviously, I definitely do have like some inspirations. Like I really look up to Bruce Lee, and
no, for sure.
Yeah, I'm very curious, and I think some people really figured out things about life. But I always, and I still kind of do. Like I don't try and idolize people or look up to people. I wasn't like scarred. I wasn't really looking up to somebody, and then it turns out that I wasn't like damaged in that way. I just never got into it.
No, I understand. I don't have any idols at all. But I have people that I meet them, I just think to myself, okay, you look like you have things figured out pretty well. I admire that. It's never really been a case of this person. I want to follow exactly in their footsteps,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't live somebody else's life. That's the thing. People try so hard to live another person's life, because when somebody is successful, they believe that if they do the exact same things that person did, they're going to be successful too. And a lot of people sell this entire, that's, bro, like all these lifestyle gurus, all these people who post, this is the billionaire daily routine. People who post shit like that, it's like, bro, like that's like, like, no offense to people who like stuff like that, but I've always thought stuff like that was really dumb. Because, no offense, because you don't become a billionaire by waking up at 5 a.m. and doing stretches. Like if you like, maybe if you wake up 5 a.m. and start dumping money in the stock market and get lucky, like, yeah, that's what billionaires do.
I'm very fascinated by when people like, actually I'm very fascinated by people who make it and people who don't make it, and I love compare, because there's so much, right, there's stuff to learn from the people who've made it, and then there's a lot of things to learn from the people who didn't make it or the people who almost made it.
Definitely.
And I tried that for like, I think it was like 3 days. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna like do one of the, I think it was Mark Wahlberg's routine where you wake up at like 4:30, 5 in the morning, you crank all this stuff out. And I was like, okay. I mean, it kind of sucked, right? Because it was only 3 days, so I didn't really give myself time to adjust. But the whole waking up crazy early thing, I realized through deductive reasoning that the only reason they're waking up so fucking early is because by 7 a.m. they have 20 missed phone calls, 1,000 emails and text messages, and like people bitching at them about all this stuff that needs to get done or that's going wrong or that's gonna happen, right? So
exactly,
I'm not there, dude. I could wake up at 1 in the afternoon and be just as productive if I go to sleep later.
See, that's the thing. They expect you, like, they sell this whole idea that by living the lifestyle of somebody who's already successful, you'll become a success. And that's not how it works. Like, okay, you could have the mindset that you're already successful and that can be productive. But like, if you're just gonna act like, oh yeah, I wake up and drink 7 raw eggs in the morning, that's what The Rock does, and I'm gonna be a famous actor. Like, bro, stop.
Nah, you're probably gonna get cholesterol problems.
You're gonna get salmonella, and you're gonna end up looking like a dickhead. Like, don't do that to yourself, please.
Doctor, like, what? How did you get salmonella? Probably, I don't know. I drink 7 raw eggs every morning.
And that's another thing. This is a side note, but the whole drinking raw eggs to get buff, I never understood that. Can't you? Is it a protein thing, right? Couldn't you just like cook the eggs and get the same amount of protein with flavor?
Actually, I don't know. So I know that when you cook things, you kind of do cook a little bit of the nutrients out of it for the most part. I'm not really sure. But I also know that there was this super, like, that's an old school musclehead tradition that carried on. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was talking about, I watched a thing when he, like, his gym in his fridge. He used to eat a lot of, meat, plant-based stuff, because that's, they were like, oh, protein's how you bulk up and get big and all that stuff. Yeah. And then, as science advanced, we just learned more about nutrition and muscle building. Protein's important, but it's actually protein in proper balance with the other stuff you're eating. So like calories, carbs, there's like 2 acids that's really important. So if you're eating all this protein, you need to bump those other things and vice versa. So it's like his fridge changed entirely, basically from all this meats, dense stuff, to like mostly vegetables, to be honest, because he's older too, and just the cleaner you eat, the better you're gonna feel if you're being physically active. And so he changed that, but he still throws the raw egg and he leaves the shell in there, and he's like, yeah, I throw the shell in for extra calcium when you blend it, right? And I was like, oh, okay, because as soon as I heard that, I was like, logically, that makes sense. Calcium, shell, it's crunchy, why not? You get like little to no benefit from the calcium of the shell. So
this man is truly built different.
Yeah, it's just one of those habits that kind of stuck around from when he was younger, and it just makes sense to him, so he does it. And like, power to you, dude.
Yeah, no, congrats, Arnold.
Yeah.
You stay buff. But I don't know. Do we have anything else to add about the nature of education?
I actually, because when I think of education, I know it always goes to school and traditional education, but I mean, I just think there's so much to learn from the world around. and just interacting with people. Like one of my favorite interactions I ever had, and this really did change my perspective on things. And there's this tattoo artist I've been going to for like 2 of my tattoos now, and she's super nice. Her name is Jamie at Inquisition in Egg Harbor. If you want to get inked, I recommend going there.
Shout out to Jamie.
Shout out to Jamie. She's actually my favorite person, one of my favorite people I've ever ran into, and I'm sure the feeling's not mutual, but I've accepted that. Right, because I'm just a client. But it's mad interesting because she's way, we're pretty tall, right, you and I, so like she's like short, totally like inked out. She's pretty fit, and the way she talks is just, she's so blunt and to the point, and she's so good at her job. Like she's a phenomenal tattoo artist, and she opened the shop, and so of course I'm like naturally curious, so I asked a bunch of stupid fucking questions. Like while she was tattooing me for like 3 hours, I was like, oh my god, like how is it opening the shop? Because a pipe dream of mine that I'm never going to pursue because I just don't want to. Like I always wanted to open a tattoo shop or be a tattoo artist. I think it's super cool. And I was so fascinated by the bluntness of her response, because she was like, to be honest, I hate tattooing. If you ever have,
wow.
Yeah, she's like, if you have any artistic aspire, like don't become a tattoo. If you have any artistic aspirations, don't be a tattoo artist, because you're not putting the stuff you want to create on other people's bodies. You're essentially like a human photocopier, and you have to just create it, and it needs to be to their standards exactly, and you don't get to put any of your input in there. You're literally there to please the customer. And I was like, whoa, I never heard anybody you don't hear that from the person who owns their tattoo shop giving you a tattoo kind of bitching about their job, right?
Wow, that's crazy.
But it was awesome. And then she's like, she said, she's so blunt, dude. She's like, yeah, like one of my favorite parts about all the tattoos I have is, she's like, people just see me and they just think I'm a dyke instantly. And so instead of talking, and she's like, which I'm not. So it's kind of fun to play up, instead of being like, yeah, I'm actually a pretty successful businesswoman who opened my tattoo shop. I have a bunch of employees and I do great work. She usually just like at parties, I just tell people I work at Walmart. They buy it, don't really think much of it. And but I guess that was a complete little tangent. But like, again, you learn things about people and their perspectives, and she's really big into philosophy. And actually, I'm sure if she's listening to this now, it's kind of creepy because like I'm talking about her so much. But she's mad into philosophy and like reading. She does all this heady reading, and she like, we've talked about it a good amount. And she's mad at, so philosophy, I've said that like 3 times. She created her own philosophy of people with tattoos, because she's been working in the business for some years now, and she realizes, she's like, when people first get their tattoos, they're a lot more conservative with them. They're smaller, usually in a place where you can't see it, and then like they stick with a couple of those until maybe they get more bold, or if they never go out there. She's like, when people are inked up, they've seen some shit, they don't really care what other people think about them. So basically she created this like kind of chart where like, okay, if you're getting this type of tattoo, this is what I'm assuming about you, versus this type of tattoo, I'm assuming this about you. And it kind of does check out, and it works. And now every time when I see people with ink, I can't help but like try and place them somewhere on this chart. And it's one of my favorite things that I've quote unquote learned or got educated about while getting tattooed.
Oh no, that's really interesting. This is odd to hear that a tattoo artistry seems like something you really do out of passion. So it's crazy to hear about somebody just not being down with it despite being really successful at it. But I feel like that's a really common story in a lot of successful people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
That, I run this big banking real estate business or banking business, but man, I really just want to be a dancer.
Or even like, I just watched a bunch about Jon Favreau because I just wanted to learn about him. And he's so blunt. He's also such a great guy. Shout out to Jon Favreau. But he was like, when I started my career, I had all this artistic freedom, and I thought that I would gain all this artistic freedom. I could do whatever I want because now I'm kind of, quote unquote, big shot, whatever. He's like, but it's the total opposite. I'm so restrained now because I have this name, I have this expectation, and all these companies, I have to follow all of their restrictions. He's like, so I'm actually my artistic creativity and ability has narrowed, even
Wow.
though like now I can pretty much make whatever I want.
That's actually a tragedy.
It's a tragedy.
Nah, because see, that's why hopefully, when this podcast blows up and we get 5 million subscribers, we won't be forced to narrow ourselves and have to fit into a certain mold, because the whole like we've already touched on this idea of celebrity. Wait, have we? Oh no, we didn't put out that episode, did we?
About celebrities? No.
Oh wow. Okay. Anyway, well, when this is a story from before the inception of Lohi, when we were recording some of our earlier episodes that never saw the light of day, we discussed the idea of celebrity, wherein once you reach a certain level, once you become an icon, you kind of lose your humanity. People expect you to fit into this box, even though most people become celebrities to break outside of a box. And I think that's another thing that ties back into this whole idea of educating yourself. Because before you aspire for these things, you need to know the goods and the bads and the ups and the downs. And I think it's really kind of disappointing how people are so willing to make another human being have to become just this thing. This, like, treating a human being that's basically like, that has hopes and dreams and aspirations like a piece of art for you to observe. It's not right. And lots of people are like, oh yeah, celebrities have money. It doesn't matter what we say or think of them. And like, yeah, like if they literally just care about the money, like, but not everybody is as thick-skinned.
Oh, for sure. I mean, just look at the rap scene, right? I never understood that, like, more money, more problems, or yet like Logic, just kind of bitching about his career. And they all say that. They're like, dude, once you hit this level, life becomes less enjoyable. But everyone who hasn't, like, we're all thinking there's no fucking way, because I promise, and we talked about this before, right? Every issue or damper on my peace of mind can absolutely be fixed with money. Like, there's no question, if I had a couple million in the bank, I would not be stressing about shit. Dude, if I was stressed out, I'd fucking buy a yacht and think about it, right? Like,
well, if I had made millions of dollars off that GameStop stock, bro, I would have no worries.
No worries right now, right?
Zero.
But I think that is the difference, though, right? So if you're not in the limelight, I feel like once you become a public figure, I think there's a lot of serious restrictions that come with that, or just serious obstacles or hurdles. Like, I feel like you do actually get a lot more confined as a public figure, especially with cancel culture.
See, cancel culture, lots of people are like, oh, cancel culture isn't real, you're just taking responsibility for your actions. Like, do you not realize that everybody's actions are up to interpretation, and people can see, that's the thing about people. We judge other people based on their actions, but we judge ourselves based on our intentions, and that's where the disconnect is. But people really fail to just like understand that. That's why they're so willing to judge, but that's why they hate being judged. Because, oh no, I never wanted to do anything wrong. He did something wrong. We gotta burn him down. You just can't be super demanding. You need, like, I can't even remember who said it. I think I read this in a comic book. Is that you need to, that like you must judge them the way that you would want yourself to be judged.
I mean, absolutely. Like, we forget intention and situation, circumstance they play huge factors.
Oh no, absolutely. But like, in the end, you gotta also remember the road to hell is paved in good intentions. So, even if their intentions were good, if they fuck up real bad, you still gotta call them out on it.
Yeah, no, that is true. Definitely true. I never bought into that whole philosophy of whatever your intention, like, and only the intention matters, the results don't.
Nah, man. Literally, you always need to take responsibility for your actions, because it might not be your fault, but it's your responsibility.
It's your responsibility.
Anyway, I think we've reached the 45-minute mark. This has been a very productive episode, don't you agree?
I definitely agree. I feel like we learned a lot. No, that was cheesy as fuck.
We were educated.
We got learned. thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of Low High. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, maybe share it with one other person. You know, we're here for the chill vibes, and we hope to keep bringing good vibes and good conversations to you guys.
You can follow us on Instagram at lowhigh.life. We will be eventually adding podcast clips to our Instagram. We have a couple. We'll be adding more from our previous podcasts and our upcoming podcasts.
Trying to keep it fresh, fun, funky, and fresh.
Hopefully, we'll be posting a preview of this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Before it comes out tomorrow.
Big time.
And thank you once again to our new lo-fi artists for these smooth tones for this episode. Yes. And we just want to remind you all, if you're feeling high, if you're feeling low, you've always got a place to go. And thank you for listening.